So when we look at your LinkedIn profile and we look at how education was for you, you didn't particularly study anything software engineering. How then did you realize that software engineering was going to be your path? What made you, make that decision?
That's a very second semester. So for the second semester, I went on IT, and I was really paying what was going on with my IT. I had to look for a job where you get to do an internship. And I just saw that this is not sustainable. Like if I graduate, this is what I will now be doing. It cannot work. So I was just doing some research, checking my archives, praying to God, and somehow the word just dropped into me. Like it just dropped one day as software engineer, and I went to look it up. Okay,
I just want to ask a question. Do you think a dev team can try without a key, or it just sounds good in theory, but natural experience, your experience, think any dev team can try without a key?
Yes, that can try to but it depends.
Developers hate stand-ups, and because for somebody who is also a product manager, I have worked with people who, well, most people that I've worked with, even the ones that I've not worked with, that I just discussed with, they do not like stand-ups, right? They find their way to avoid it. They're like, it's frying their brain. They just rather sit on their system and code, okay? But then we need updates as PMs. So how do we then navigate through what the developers want to do, what the PMs need to do, and
dynamic. In my personal opinion, there is stand-up is micromanaging. I'm sure my employers or few employers, yes, they said yes, I said so. It's micromanagement. Although people say you need to be able to be accountable, yes, but the other ways. I want to say it's micromanaging without giving you an solution, and this is based on personal experiences, right? So
it falls back to, is the PM managing the team properly? But then there's just one developer on that team that is a pain. So how do you think?
I almost think you're reporting a personal issue. Well, yes,
I've been there.
I understand. You've been there. I mean, I've been there too, trying to manage other engineers too. So that's like this is now boiling down to personal values of the individual working with a team. You don't want to work with a team of people that are not reliable, that are not available. I mean, it's a job. You're paid to do a job, and as thus your availability is required.
Question, and I want you to be honest. Like just give it to me. Tell me. Okay, be honest. Are product managers actually necessary, or have we just convinced ourselves that they are?
I believe they are necessary.
Victor is a software engineer with a strong focus in front-end development. He considers himself to be a product engineer, that is, translating creative ideas into tangible products that offer value to customers and drive company growth. His experience ranges across industries, contributing to solutions in the fintech, logistics, and the social commerce industry. He currently works at Evolve Credit, building core credit infrastructure for businesses and individuals.
So when we look at your LinkedIn profile and we look at how education was for you, you didn't particularly study anything software engineering. How then did you realize that software engineering was going to be your path? What made you, make that decision?
I mean, that's a very interesting question. I mean, a lot of people that know me and know what I studied. Just for context, I studied chemical engineering. And the people that know I studied chemical engineering, when they later on figure out that I'm a software engineer, they're kind of, okay, how did you know you were going to do that? So my first exposure to programming was in 200 level. I mean, engineering 200 level, just introduction to programming and introduction to computer programming. And I was quite interested in the topic. But the funny thing that happened was when I wrote the exam and I saw my results, I got an E. So, something I was very interested in. I was hoping I would get like a very good score. Yeah. I got E. It kind of just like waylaid me. I was like, what's this? It's not interesting. But later on, I have peers in other engineering departments like computer engineering, some in computer science. And if I go out to hang out with them in their labs or so, I see them, they're doing something. Then I decided, okay, let me just pick it up by myself. That was like 300 level. Like 200 level, second semester, picking up 300 level. And somehow, unfortunately, in 300 level, my laptop got stolen. Then I stopped again.
Okay.
That's how I started. I was already introduced to it. I started doing like HTML. I stopped again.
Yeah.
And by 400 level second semester. So 400 level second semester, I went on IT. And I was really pained with what was going on with my IT. I had to like look for a job where you get to do your internship. And I just saw that this is not sustainable. Like if I graduate, this is what I will now be doing. It cannot work. So I was just doing some research, checking my archives, praying to God. And somehow the word just dropped into me, like it just dropped one evening like a software engineer. And I went to look it up. Now, at this time, I'd forgotten totally that I had touched this thing when I was like 200 level, 300 level. You understand? I forgot totally. I just stopped. And then, but by this time, I knew what I wanted, and I was just doing some research, and I figured, okay, software engineering. What is software engineering? Using code to solve problems. Okay, how do I get started? And I saw fundamentals of web technology, and I saw HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and it just clicked to me that, oh, you've done this before, like HTML, CSS. This is what they taught us C in Introduction to Programming, but like HTML, CSS, this is something I was trying before like I kind of stopped in the past, and you just clicked back and I was like, wow, I'm going to do this. So it's not necessarily like, it's more necessarily like I stumbled into it. I didn't know I stumbled into. I took a pause, then I got back into it again. So that's how my journey into software engineering started. But more like coincidence, or more like I was interested, something will lead me. I lost interest and I got interested back again.
That's remarkable, because for me, who studied computer science, I got into it, stepped out of it, got into it again, and the moment I stepped out, I'm like, no, we're not doing this anymore. So I want to ask, what still like motivates you about being a software engineer? What interests you about building products? Because you're still there. It's not your course of study, but you're still there.
Yeah. Interesting stuff is that I get to build stuff that really creates value for users. Them that know me, when I started learning like JavaScript, Node.js, I was like, I'm gonna use Node.js to solve world hunger.
Okay.
It was very hilarious then. I'm gonna use Node.js to solve world hunger. Today I'm using React to solve my hunger.
The point is, one hunger is being solved.
It's solved, exactly. So the interesting thing, or what excited me, was that, wow, the problems you can solve with this. The first time I wrote a line of code that showed on my console "Hello World," I was wowed. Like, okay, so you can tell a computer to do something, and I knew that, okay, computer is faster than a human. Forget it. I'm going to solve world hunger. It just came to me like that. So, but the reality is certain. It's not easy as it sounds. But the exciting thing about building products is that I get to write code. I get to write software that solves problems for individuals, right? And that's the exciting thing. Every single day, you're writing something that's solving a problem for someone somewhere.
Oh, that's just beautiful. Okay, so I want to ask a question, and I want you to be honest. Like, just give it to me. Tell me.
Man is on my Bible.
Okay, be honest. Are product managers actually necessary, or have we just convinced ourselves that they are?
I believe they are necessary. Where the divide is if they're actually doing what is expected of them. Yeah. So product managers. So the same way I want to like draw a comparison. The same way a company is operating, and you have the workforce and you have the human resource department. So the human resource department is supposed to manage the workforce, quote unquote, like alongside the managers. Tend after the affairs of the workforce, tend after the affairs of the managers. They are more like the in between. So in my own definition, I believe the product manager, aside managing the product, is also managing the engineers. So you're the first line of contact for the dev team, for the development team. You are the product manager is our HR. Aside the fact that you are assigning tasks and organizing product direction, you're also checking our well-being. That is what I feel the product manager is very essential for. Although it's trivial, some people can say for a small team, you don't necessarily need a product manager. And I don't really think so. I feel like all products need a product manager. As the name implies, you're managing the products. Of course, engineers can take ownership of something, but at the end of the day, there has to be somebody that, I will say someone that cushions the, there's some kind of lashback that comes from product owners, CEOs. Yeah. So the in between is the product manager. So I don't necessarily have to be taking feedback from customer, taking feedback from product owners. My product manager is there to help me do that and translate that requirement to me. So that's why I believe they are important. They are essential, no doubt.
Okay. So now you just kind of listed out the things that they do to, show forth their importance on the team. But I also want to ask a question. Do you think a dev team can thrive without a PM, or it just sounds good in theory, but in actual experience, in your experience, do you think any dev team can thrive without a PM?
Yes, a dev team can try without a product manager, right? Without a PM, but it depends, and that depends on the scale of the project.
Okay.
So, for example, say we have a small project that's for a business, maybe to set up their online presence, their digital presence, have them a website, set up a content management system. Quote unquote, you don't need a product manager for that because it's like something that every product or every business has, right? So depending on the
Yeah.
scale of the project, if it's something simple, you probably don't need a PM. But by the time there are different bells and whistles, there are different conjoining parts, you need a product manager to maintain direction. Why do I say so? The scale also affects the scale of the engineering team. So if a product is quite large, I mean, when I mean large, I'm talking about features to implement, complexity of the project. So of course, because it's a large product, you will need more number of engineers, right? You can need more number of engineers. So the scale is relative. So if it's just like it's relative to the, I mean, let me come again. It's relative to the scale of the project and the scale of the engineering team. So if you have one person in a team or two people in a team, two of them can collaborate and just get things done. But by the time you have 4 or 5 people, it becomes a relationship thing at this time. Have 4 engineers working across board, 5 engineers, like the numbers increase relative to also the number of features that needs to be implemented for a product. Talking about the scale of the product, then you need a product manager. There are times where I even say you need to have 1, 2 product managers, not just even just one. Yeah, so you need somebody to run point on the direction of the product. So it depends on skill. Yeah.
Oh, so from what you said, it means that to be able to decide if a team needs a product manager or they can self-manage, it depends on the scale of what you're trying to build.
Yeah, scale of the product.
That's interesting. I thought like we PMs were just going to be out of the picture. That's why I started with the question, do you think PMs are necessary? I want to know from a developer's standpoint, like, do you people see us as needed on the team?
Of course. I see product managers as needed.
Thank you. Now that causes relief. So as a React lead, you've been working in agile teams, but I believe that since you are a developer, you understand more technicalities than the PM, except the PM is a technical PM. And I'd like to ask, how do you bring up tricky technical issues during sprint planning and product, and something that the product manager does not notice?
Okay. So you said tricky technical issues, not necessarily tricky issues. So my what I propose or assume is that a product manager, as I said, not a technical product manager, a product manager at least should have domain experience in that product or in that field that we're trying to build something. Because at the end of the day, product managers are supposed to communicate requirements down to the engineering team, not necessarily technically, but in a way that the technical team can pick up and implement. Now, for the tricky technical issues, I would propose that, or how we've done it in the past, is a product manager that already has domain experience in a certain field or in the product we're trying to build is going to reach out to maybe the technical lead or someone that can represent the technical team. Now, of course, these discussions are happening even before the technical team is involved, right? So while the product is being thought about, while the PRDs are being developed, they need to reach out to one person that's probably technical lead, ideally, right? And have a discussion about the product, right? I believe in that case is when you exclude that process that you begin to miss technical issues, because the technical lead will see those tricky issues before you actually get there. So during sprint planning, the direct answer is during sprint planning, for a product manager not to miss technically tricky parts, they should just consult at least one technical person, most likely technical lead. And I feel like that will really reduce a bunch of the technical holdups we get when building a product. Yeah. Although while building a product, when they say you're flying a plane as you're building it, right? Although down the line there's a possibility for some technical constraints, but ideally from the start you will catch a very large percentage of them. Inevitably there will be something down the road, but a large chunk that will never cause a hold up, right? You probably sleep before getting there.
Fascinating. So if you could, because now you mentioned that they should have domain knowledge, right? PMs need domain knowledge in any field you're working at all. So I want to ask a question. If you could, tell a PM to learn something that would help them be relevant in whatever domain, because I feel like not every PM know the tools they're supposed to be acquainted with when working with their teams. So people just stick with the basics, the Jira and the board, but there are other things that you need to understand, even technical lingua, to be able to communicate properly with your dev team. And there'll be this level of understanding between the team. So I want to ask, like, what would you advise a PM to learn to help reduce the amount of friction that happens between the dev team and the PM?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. And to the way you've constructed it, it sounds like two questions in one. But I'll try to see if I can give an answer that strikes both. So first and foremost, you talked about the tools that a product manager should be able to use. Now, you said aside the basics, Jira, which aids in your project management. You also need to know a bit of technical tools for you to be able to communicate technically. I believe the pain point here is the friction between technical team and product management team, right? Okay. So the first thing is, before we talk about the tools, rather, you don't know domain. You don't have domain experience in that product you're trying to build. For example, I work in the credit industry, and of course, if we hire a product manager today that probably doesn't know anything about credit, you need to be up to date about that. Of course, and that's where mental resourcefulness kicks in. I define mental resourcefulness as knowing how to ask the right questions to get the right answers. There's a way you're trying to look for an answer, and if you don't ask the question correctly, you get a wrong answer. So mental resourcefulness is one of those qualities I believe a product manager needs to have. Knowing how to ask the right question. Now, not necessarily from the engineering team, but from the product owner or from resources out there. So you want to understand how credit works. You probably have somebody in the team or probably the CEO. Just have a sit down with him. The CEO most likely knows what credit is. I'm using credit as an example. Have a sit down with him and just chat. Okay, what's the credit industry looking like today? Talk with somebody that works there. That's mental resourcefulness. You're just going about your way, trying to ask questions to understand. Now let's come back to the technical tools. And for the technical tools, it's about just understanding the basics of how the engineering works. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
I worked with a product manager, and when she came on board the first time, she probably was not familiar with technical tools. But she made it a point in her career by letting us know as engineers that she wants to understand these things. And it really helped the synergy between both teams. Now that's mental resourcefulness at play, knowing the right questions to ask the engineering team. She told us she wanted to learn how to do this. She wants to learn the tooling that we use so that she can best communicate with us. And one of the first things we started with was the network tab. As simple as that thing is the dev tools, right? It really was really a game changer for our team, because anytime there's an issue, a customer reports an issue, the technical product manager is not just, or the product manager is not just coming to us and reporting the issues. She's also doing a little bit of debugging with the customer. Okay, can we get to see what request is being made? Okay, I'm trying to make a request to disbursement. She sees what is going wrong, and she can communicate technically to us what was wrong, rather than just reporting the issue. Then the engineer will now start picking up from where she should have picked up, quote unquote. Right? So it just really speeds up the resolution time, when the product managers are aware of the toolings for a developer. So apart from the fact that you are aware of the toolings, you know how to report issues technically. And no PM knows that, right? No PM knows that from the scratch. Like, you have to learn it from developers, because it's what developers actually do. So, just to sum it up again, domain experience, if you don't know it, you can get it just by asking questions. And for toolings that engineers use, you just have to ask the engineers, okay, what tooling do you use? okay, how best do you expect me to report this next time? It got to a point where when our PM is returning and reporting an issue, she knows what to just report, gives you the endpoint, gives you the token, and tells you that, okay, this is the error. Yeah, fix this. And it just makes sense faster. Yep. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, I actually envisioned that because if she's giving tokens and everything, it just makes it faster. You don't have to find what's wrong. You already know it because you've been given the very link to find that. That just makes a lot of sense. So I want to ask, like, what gaps, if there are any at all, do product managers feel that developers alone cannot?
Okay. Uh, Very nice question. One of it is dealing with stakeholders. You know, um, engineers at time we just tend to have tunnel vision and just be engrossed in the solution we're trying to build. We're not even thinking about the customer again or the stakeholders. We're just like enjoying ourselves trying to write code. You know, so quote unquote, the product manager is like our timekeeper and also our shield against those pressure outlash from management. So I feel like that's something a product manager does very well that engineers might not be able to handle. You know, project managers, as I said, project managers are our HR, the HR of the dev team. They speak for the dev team, right? So you notice those kind of things where the stakeholders will like double down on the product team and ask for something to be done in so amount of time. Now, the product manager can decide to not pass that pressure down onto the engineering team because he or she is confident in that team and does relay the communications without pressure. Because most of the time, that pressure can affect how we actually do our work. You've seen that meme where they'll say, okay, just do it now, we'll fix it later. And everything is just piling up. But with the product manager, he or she understands the dynamism of the team. It's almost like the product manager is our parents. Okay, he or she knows that, oh, this guy is good with this one is good with this one is not good with this. Now, if stakeholder were to be directly communicating with engineering team, they can just assign it to a random person. But if you assign it to the product manager knows whose strengths and whose strengths can play well for this and assign to that. So it's not just only about assigning. It's more like, how will I put it? You know who is most capable to do something if you're trying to look for something. So if you need somebody that can get things for you ASAP, you know what to reach out to. Somebody that knows, somebody that pays attention to detail, and this is a very tricky feature we need to implement. Therefore, you hand it over to him because he can handle it. So you're not just only watching for, you're not just only watching out for the stakeholders, but you're also watching out for the engineers also. And that's one thing I know that PMs actually play a good role in. That's something the PM can do that developers can't do without.
That's really interesting. I'm curious. I want to know because now you're senior front end developer. It means that you are the lead, right? I want to ask a question around why developers hate stand-ups, and because okay, for somebody who is also a product manager, I have worked with people who, well, most people that I've worked with, even the ones that I've not worked with that I just discussed with, they do not like stand-ups, right? They find their way to avoid it. They're like, it's frying their brain. They just rather sit on their system and code, okay? But then we need updates as PMs. So how do we then navigate through what the developers want to do, what the PMs need to do, and what the stakeholders, like that's the management, really need from the team? Because if I need to get certain details from you as a developer in a stand-up meeting, and then you're not there, or you're even reluctant to get your task done, and there's just this friction that sometimes as a PM you don't quite understand why it's there, but it's just there. So I want to know, I want to know what is the issue, what's the problem?
Yeah, so straight off the book, I will be narrating my own personal experience. I mean, I don't know about other people, but personal experience, right? I noticed that, quote and unquote, I mean, just like engineering, whatever we learn in tutorials is not actually what we do in real life, on an actual project. We learn the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You follow a tutorial. you learn something. But in your day to day, you're actually not doing what was learned. You only just learned the fundamentals to be able to solve a problem in the real world. And I feel like that's the same thing too for product managers. I have friends that have gone to product management schools. I mean, taking a product management course maybe at Alt School or ALX or UStack. You know, these are the things that I mentioned there. Daily stand up. But in the real life scenario, it doesn't actually work like that because you're dealing with human beings. Not, I mean, you're trying to apply a system to human beings that are dynamic. In my own personal opinion, daily stand up is micromanaging. I'm sure my employers or future employers will hear this and say, Victor, you said this. Yes, I said so. It's micromanagement. Although people say you need to be able to be accountable. Yes, but there are other ways. I wouldn't say it's micromanaging without giving you an alternate solution. And this is based on personal experiences, right? So, as we've said, the product manager is responsible for the product. Therefore, the product manager knows everything each and everyone is working on. I mean, the product manager is assigned to people. So he or she knows, okay, this is who is responsible for this. Now, a stand-up meeting is supposed to come and give updates. That's what it is. It's as simple as that. That might not work for everybody in the team because everybody has different ways of work. So talking about personal experiences also, I am someone that likes to grind early in the morning. So early hours of the day, 4 a.m. to like 10 a.m., that's my good time. If you set a call between that, you've disrupted my flow for the day. I mean, people have stand-ups in the morning, some people have in the evening, some people have in the afternoon. But at that time, evening time you are doing it is probably someone's best time for doing work. And you've disrupted that person's flow. So now, as I've said, we talked about the PM being the HR. PM knows, okay, what's this guy's strength, what's this guy's strength. And to give you, as I still say again, personal experience, we did like a round table for my team, and we talked about this stand-up thing because it was more like, I mean, we could see that it was an issue.
Yeah.
And we discussed it and said, okay, what can we do? And it was suggested that, okay, since the PM, as our HR, knows everything everybody's working on, he or she can just go to that person's DM or make a call and just get a general update of what's happening. Right? I mean, the pain point was that it's not as if we don't want to stand up. The pain point was that we spend ridiculous amounts of hours on stand-up. Something that was not supposed to last 5 minutes is lasting 30, 1 hour. Right?
Yeah,
okay, so what exactly? So what we did, or the approach we took that made things faster, was we said, okay, we only have this general stand-up call maybe twice a week. I mean, that was the first approach we did. I mean, that didn't work. Another approach we did was, okay, before we get into the stand-up call, the one that eventually actually worked was, before we get into the stand-up call, the PM goes round to get updates from everybody. And not just only getting updates. So it's not just the PM's duty to get update from you. It's also developers' duty to also get back to the PM and state your updates. Okay, so if you're still working on something in progress, just tell in progress, I'm here. This is what is blocking me. I might be done with this soon. So by the time we get into the PM, into the stand-up, the PM already knows the updates of everybody. And we just go straight into addressing blockers. Because most of the time, whatever you're working on is cross-functional across 2 engineers or 3 engineers. So Dele is blocking Victor is blocking Fumi. You understand? Dele knows Fumi and Victor is blocking right? What Dele just does is, when we get into the meeting, PM just brings out the issue, try to see how we can get things done. I feel like, in my own opinion, I just feel like stand-up should be organized to solve problems as soon as possible. To get updates, yes, but the updates can be collected before the stand-up. I mean, that's what I just feel. And in my own experience, that helped our team to be more efficient. The amount of times that we spent on call reduced drastically, right? And everybody was prepared with their updates because we've already said, okay, give it to the PM, or the PM will reach out to you before that time and give the updates. So it was like a better way to do things rather than getting on a call and, wasting time. Personal experience, though.
That's really helpful, actually. I just understand better that it reduces time, and then I just feel like, since that's a model, that means the stand-up should be for solving problems, not collecting them. Because that would take extra time now if you're trying to collect the problems at that point. But I have a question, because, should I say personal experience? It's around how to get a developer who's not readily available. Okay, here's the thing. He's already on the team. He's working with everybody. I mean, you're a senior lead. I want to ask, how then do you get a developer who is not always available for, the calls, the meetings, the little collection of what's going on and everything, those little updates? How do you get a developer to give what's necessary when it's needed? Because some people are not available when they are needed to be, and then it just affects the entire team. It creates technical debt. There's just a lot going on, and it falls back to, is the PM managing the team properly, but then there's just one developer on that team that is a pain. So how do you think?
I almost think you're reporting a personal issue. But yes,
I've been there.
I understand. You've been there. I mean, I've been there too, trying to manage other engineers too. So that's like this is now boiling down to personal values of the individual working on your team. You don't want to work with a team of people that are not reliable, that are not available. I mean, it's a job. you're paid to do a job, and as thus your availability is required. And at the end of the day, it still boils down to knowing how, what's the word, the skills in the workplace. Being available. You're working remotely. I mean, even on site, you're working remotely. There are certain things that are required of you. Okay, so during work hours, you are meant to be available. There shouldn't be any reason why you should not be available. Do you understand? So that at the end of the day, it's not the PM's fault that an engineer is not responding. It's not. It's just that particular engineer or particular team member doesn't want to play ball. That's just what it's just proven. So that person is proven to be difficult. And in that case, as I said, the PM manages the engineer, right? That's where the social skill, the soft skill come into play.
Oh, I was going to say fire him, but
fire. No, that's the nuclear option. You don't have to necessarily go the nuclear option. So it's all about the social skill, the soft skills. Look, let me give you an example or an experience that I had. So in my team, there was a particular engineer that was very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Give updates. He will be getting the updates. You will be as if he's holding the updates. Like, give it now. It's not your own. Give the updates. So, and it's giving the product manager a hard time. Now, as I said, the product manager has the acumen to know who is who in the team. Okay, this guy is good at this one is doing this. Okay, this one's our friends, this one this. Now, because that person was my friend, all the PM had to do was just reach out to me and say, oh, I'm trying to reach this guy. I'm unable to reach him. Can you help me reach him? And in my attempt to reach the guy was available. But funny enough, he was not available for the PM, but he was available for me. So what I could do was, okay, now get the get the updates on behalf of the PM from him. It was very hilarious. But what I could see there that made sense was that the PM knew how to get it from him. Yeah, she knew how to get it from him. Right? Yeah.
So you could just boycott.
Yeah.
Just get the information. That's what's important.
You don't necessarily have to go all dogfight. It's all about relationship. Like falling back to your relationship, falling back to your systems, and trying to see how you can maneuver this. Now, in the case where, of course, things are not proving difficult, then you have to take it up with management. To find a solution. But as I've said, this is not the PM's fault. It's the particular individual proving to be difficult. And then you can have a sit down and discuss, okay, what's the issue? And it could not be because it could just be because maybe a personal issue. Something happened, you had to maybe be off sick for some hours. Just about, and again, it still boils down to communication.
I have personal issues too, but then I show up to work and I work. So please show up to work and work too. I'll give you my time after the meeting, after you're giving me updates, and then we can discuss personal issues. You can pour your heart out to me and tell me what's going on, and I pour my heart out to you and tell you what's going on. But give me updates. The management is on my neck. It can be really frustrating, but I mean, seeing how you just broke it down and how to still get the information just makes a lot of sense, actually. So, in your experience, of being, you've managed developers too, even as a team lead, because that's one of the things team leads do, and you've worked with several PMs in your experience. So have you ever watched a product become harder to build than it needed to be just because of too many hands in the pot? Like the product manager was not doing what was needed, there was just something wrong, or it was the dev. It just became really complex. It added to the complexity.
Yes, yes. I've been in situations like that.
Do you mind narrating your experience? What happened? Like, what led to that?
Well, the ideal thing, there are a bunch of things that can make a product not go well. Like product development just become difficult, as you said. There are a bunch of factors. It could be competence of the engineering team, right? And it could be competence of the product team, or even the competence of the management. Because if the management doesn't understand what you're trying to build, they will be putting demands on you that are unreasonable because they don't even understand. So understanding of the management, understanding of the product team, understanding of the engineering team. I mean, these are the factors at play. But we're just trying to say, okay, in my own experience, when it's related to engineering or product, like have I experienced something? Yes, I've experienced in both ways, right? So in the engineering aspects, I was assigned a team of engineers. No, so that kind of thing that you're trying to build a product and you're just brought into the product to manage the team. So you don't necessarily even know who are the team members. Like you just enter the team and they put you, say, become the coach, but you don't know who the players are. Yeah, you're just getting to know them for the first time. So you needed to do your evaluation. I feel like that's how PMs are to just throw them into a team and they're trying to figure it out by themselves. So there was a bit of friction in that there's some engineers that did not have that level of experience that the product required. You understand? So you're building something a bit complex. You hire a junior engineer. I mean, you don't expect the same level of results drivenness, if I may say. You understand? Yeah, because of the level of competence and level of understanding or knowledge of that engineer. And for the product too, when we say things that relate to the product and the product development process, made things difficult was because the product management team were not actually concerning themselves with the thing that actually needed to be concerned with.
Yeah.
They were most likely just involved in on the fly resolutions. So some things were not thought about before handing it over to the engineering team. So by the time they've marked like, okay, this is good for development, and it gets to the table of engineering is now having to ask questions back to the product that shifts the goalposts. Okay, so we didn't think about this. Let me give an example. You say you want to build an admin platform, and of course, ideally, an admin platform doesn't necessarily need to have a sign up or a forgot password implementation, because the idea is it's supposed to be a closed system. It's not something that everybody's supposed to have access to. As thus, the product team is now thinking of, okay, sign up, send emails, do this, do that. But actually, the product doesn't need it. Do you get? I mean, that's a very simple, trivial example, but everybody knows that. But say, extrapolate that and bring to a real product scenario. So there's a particular implementation that's supposed to be thought about in a certain way, right? Product management team failed to capture all the edge cases. Or failed to consult. And now they fail to consult not because it's their own fault. It could be, as I said, too, because of management. Probably at the time of when product managers are setting up the PRD, they did not have a technical person to consult. There was no consultation of a technical person. Then after product management has decided, hire a technical team, you can see how that's not a mismatch of the process. At the end of the day, we find ourselves building something difficult. We're trying to build, and we find ourselves building it in a difficult way. I mean, I've had situations where I talk with a product manager, and from the layout of the product development plan, everything seems feasible. Everything makes sense. But there are ones where we get into and things just become difficult. Why? Because there was a misstep at some point. So at the end of the day, I mean, this is not to cast blame on anybody, but it's just how the processes go. You can find yourself in a situation where the product manager is not able to do full due diligence because there was no consultation of a technical person. The engineering lead or engineering team could find themselves in a position where there's not enough product requirements to build something, and things just become difficult.
Yes. So it all boils down to the amount of details that is given and is required, and also the expertise of the people working on the team.
Exactly. So you could have all the requirements in this world. You could have everything laid out completely correctly, but if there's not enough expertise to execute, it becomes a engineering turmoil. So that's how.
Yeah. So a question I'd like to ask is, what do you think is the most misunderstood part of a developer's job, from the management, from even the product manager? Sometimes I think we have this view of, is it not just to create that button, and the developer's looking at you like, hey,
Thank you for that question. I thank you for that question. So my answers will be opinionated because I'm an engineer also, and I would like to give an example. So say, for every field, you're concerned about, okay, do this within a certain timeline. I feel like this timeline talk, right? It's not just to do that button. We need to get this done by tomorrow. That's fine. Every field needs timeline, has timeline. You are a construction worker. You guys are trying to build a bridge. There's a timeline for you to finish that bridge. Right? You are that's by the way. So now let's use the profession of medicine, for example. So doctors or surgeons or EMTs are required to work within certain hours of the day. That's why you do shifts, things like shift, right? Okay, so I need to be at work Friday night, or from Friday night till Saturday night. All right? So you need to work within this period of time. And say a surgery is slated for 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. Now, if a surgeon goes into the OR, the operating room, at 3 p.m., nobody will call the doctor to come and attend meeting now. Do you understand? So when a task is assigned to an engineer in the same manner, he or she needs to double down on that task. It's the same. I just want to believe it's the same brain work, or the same amount of brain work a doctor is using in the OR that an engineer needs to write code. It takes that amount of focus. This is high cognitive tasks. You need to sit with it and get it done. Right?
I think all the devs will be happy hearing this now.
I'm sure they will be happy hearing that. So if and only we are giving this, this is now just narrating my own opinion. I feel like the reason why engineers have a lash back at all these things is because, we have, maybe we're in long hours of calls talking about product specification. We've decided at 4 p.m. that's, okay, 4 p.m., this is what we're going to build. Then by 9 a.m. the next morning, you're asking him for an update. It's somewhat annoying because 4 p.m. is the end of the day. He needs to also go and do something about his own personal activities. Okay, he sleeps, he wakes up in the morning around 8. He's just getting into it. And 9 a.m. you're asking for an update and you're commonizing his update. Are you not supposed to be done with this? That's now almost like emotional, and that you expect the engineer to give an emotional response. But the idea at the end of the day is it's going to take, that's my personal idea. I say it takes as long as it's going to take. It just takes as long as it's going to take, because if a doctor, a surgeon is in the OR and the operation is meant to last 2 hours, say from 3 to 5, right? And the surgeon is taking longer. Nobody will come to the OR and tell the doctor, why are you taking long now? Do you get my point? He's doing what needs to be done. Now, of course, there could be a reason why it's taking longer. Say there was delay in getting a particular implementation, or delay, did I say implementation? There was delay in getting a particular equipment to the OR or something, for whatever reason. Probably there was no soap or there was no anesthesia. Anything could have been the reason why the operation took longer. But at the end of the day, what are you looking for? A successful operation. And I feel like that is the same attitude we're supposed to take into product development. Not to say that, okay, engineers cannot do work within certain time, but sometimes some things just take the amount of time it takes. You're trying to build a feature that's so very simple, but you encounter a development issue. Maybe your developer server is not starting. Then you go ahead to use 2 hours to figure out why your development server is not working. Like, it's crazy. Anything could have been the issue. So rather than let down an engineer, I believe PMs should maybe check to see what actually caused the issue. And now, although this is not saying that engineers are always right, or they get to do what some engineers don't do what they're supposed to.
They're not always right.
Yeah. Sometimes they just faff. There are times I faff. I just play. I was listening to music or like watch a YouTube video or something while not doing my work. And and then sometimes it's just because I'm not in the mood. Fun enough, I feel like when I'm in the mood to write code, like code just flows. When I'm not in the mood, it's difficult and just stressing. So it could be because of that. It's just about understanding your engineering team, understanding the people you're working with, and see how you can like get things done. But at the end of the day, you need to cut them some slack. I just believe in my personal opinion.
I think I understand cutting them some slack, right? Because everybody's working and it involves a lot of mental focus to get the job done. But I think we also need to find a way to balance it out, because sometimes they don't need as much time as they need, and like you mentioned, they might just be playing around or doing something while deadline is just staring at us in the face. So how then do you think a PM should understand how to balance things out? You mentioned that anything could go wrong while trying to build a certain product, no matter how simple it is. And that's why PMs should reach back for updates. But if the dev feels like the PM is asking for updates for something of yesterday, but then he encountered an issue and he didn't let it known to the PM, there's just this communication that's not flowing. And how do you think PMs should then understand what's going on? It's already misunderstood in the first place, but how do we now understand what's going on if there's no proper communication in the first place?
Yeah, so I mean the problem there, as you said, is the communication, proper communication. That's the problem. And as these issues arise in a product team, I believe it's the product manager's responsibility to address it. Now, it's also a bad thing for an engineer not to communicate. Very bad. So it's all about teaching. I mean, everybody have a teachable spirit. We're teaching each other how things should get done. The same way I mentioned, we taught our PM how to, debug technical issues from the network tab and report it technically. At the end of the day, saving our lives, right? In the same manner, PM needs to teach. I mean, so say in that case, I mean, there's this rule we have in our team. If something is taking longer than expected, so something was supposed to take, say, 2 hours, and 1 hour in, you still have not resolved that issue, most definitely that is still going to take another 1 hour. It's already extended. Communicate beforehand. That's not the rule in the team. So something is proving difficult, we just communicate it beforehand and say, hey, hi PM, this is happening right now, and I think this might most likely potentially cause this issue. So you are aware, even before we get into a stand-up meeting, that this is something that's causing an issue. Hours before then. And because of now we know that that's what's causing an issue, we tend to find a solution before it gets into the stand-up time. And I know that tension can be very high in the stand-up when you just report an issue, or you say this is what's blocking you, but nobody was aware. I mean, it just feels like you're not serious, or you're not, like, you don't necessarily care about what's going on. So beforehand, if you can communicate. So I feel like PM can communicate these requirements to engineers and let them understand. So if something is taking longer than expected, reach out. If you need help from somebody, reach out for help. If you need, because I mean, you understand what's at stake, and also, so you need to help the product manager do his or her job by providing that update beforehand. Communication. So this problem that you just narrated is as a result of poor communication. So the way to fix it is by fixing the communication. And I feel like if the communication is fixed, the way product will be managed, the way product will be built will be easier on the product manager.
Actually, that's true. I totally agree. I actually agree very much, especially when you mentioned that you then state out the things like, if this is taking too long, reach back. If this is taking too long, reach back. And then you understand that if they're asking you for update, it's because you didn't reach back, saying something is taking your time. And that makes a lot of sense. So another question I'd like to ask is, what do you think, in your experience, what do you think are the qualities that makes a product manager truly valuable to the team?
Truly valuable. Okay. Aside the fact that as a product manager, you know your onions, right? So like understanding product development, understanding the product requirements. So nothing is more annoying than saying we're supposed to do 2 + 2 = 4, and you later come and tell us 2 + 2 = 7. At the end of the day, when that kind of thing happens, I don't blame anybody but the product manager. The fact that you've changed it. Now, not because of, requirements can change for whatever reason, but a requirement that changed as a result of the lack of understanding of something. At the end of the day, it's the product team that's responsible. Do you get what I'm saying? You are leading, don't lead us astray. You get my point? So knowing your onions means having all the requirements clear, communicated clearly. Right? I feel like that's what product manager is supposed to do. You've assigned tasks clearly, you've assigned it to the best of our strengths, you know the requirements, you know the end result of what you're trying to build, not guesswork. So that's what I mean by knowing your onions. Right? So aside knowing your onions, I feel like your product manager for me has to be likable. If I don't like my PM, I don't know if I can work with my PM. I have to like you as a person.
So how do we get likable? Because that's like, it's, how would I put it? It's far-fetched. Not everybody's going to like me on a team. How then do I become likable?
I wouldn't know how to answer that question, right? But I feel like you need to have to go out of your way, quote unquote, go out of your way to build a personal relationship with your engineers as a product manager. You're dealing with human beings, not robots at the end of the day, right? You're also a manager. Even if you are not you're not like a C-level manager, you're still a manager. You are managing, even though you are a junior PM, quote unquote, junior, you're starting your career. You are managing people, and as those soft skills are involved, you need to, communicate, relate, so small talk, all those things, right? Just try to build a personal relationship outside work with your engineers, and I feel like with that, you begin to have people that have your back. Do you understand? So more like a personal relationship. Yes, not everybody's likable. We know that, and I know what you're talking about, right? Not everybody's likable, but at least there should be a middle ground where you guys can meet and say, okay, white handkerchiefs, no fight here, no.
I don't despise you.
Exactly. So if you can achieve that, I believe you become likable. Yeah. Not everybody will like you, but just try to.
So for the qualities you look out for from a PM is know your onions, and then be likable, because it's important for rapport.
Yeah, be likable, be teachable, because of course you don't know everything. Of course you don't know everything. As I said, you're dealing with human beings. You don't know everything about that human being, so you need to get to know. I remember an example. I just got onboarded on a product, and I really liked that PM. I loved working with her. I just got onboarded on products, and I was onboarded by the CEO, then handed over to the team. And the product manager reached out to me. I was like, oh, she's from the product team. She'd like to talk to me. And we just started talking. Small talk. And she was like, okay, she was working with engineers. What time? She asked me, what time are you best good for writing code? And I told her early hours of the morning. She was like, wonderful. She will not stop me early hours of the morning. For somebody to give me that plus and win, say, don't worry. You see this time that you like to code, I won't disturb you. I won't call you. She just noted that, okay, you like working this, I won't call you at this time. Except emergency, I won't call you. Don't worry. And of course, because she knows that when she's setting a meeting, she'll probably not set it in that time that she knows is my best window for, that's somebody that wants to be likable, quote unquote. You get my point? Now, so I know that the PM has my back on this matter. I can have the PM's back also. It's just a trust thing. It's just a relationship thing. Yeah. At the end of the day, you're dealing with human beings, not robots. Yeah. I feel like the friction sometimes is PM just wants to use what is in a textbook for engineers. What's in the textbook. But they told you, it doesn't work that way. Yes, you will still use it. Don't throw it out of the door. No, don't throw it away. But you need to understand that in your situation, you are dealing with a unique individual. Individual. Not all meetings have to start with good. For example, not all meetings have to start with good morning, everybody. Welcome to this stand-up. This is please tell us what you did. No, it doesn't have to start like that. It doesn't have to start like that. It can start like by, hi guys, who has eaten today? This one says, I have not eaten today. I don't have anything. They say, don't worry. You'll pay salary next month. So what will I eat before salary comes? Just small banter before the meeting starts. And you don't have to say, this is personal opinion. You don't have to say, you tell us today, yesterday, because we know what we used to say. Yeah. I'm just joking. So it's all about, yes, we're being serious here. We're here to do work. but you understand the relationship, you build a relationship with your team members at the end of the day.
I need to change my ways.
I'm sure your engineers will be grateful when you change your ways.
Oh my God, thank you. That's so profound, really. You just broke down how developers perceive PMs, and I think a lot of developers would agree with you on this because everybody wants to work with somebody they like at least, and that just makes lots of sense. So, I think my final question would be, what, like, would you say that the success of a product, right? Because when I was going through my PM lectures and everything, I always hear that the success of a product is dependent on the product manager. And I even say it, right? I say it's dependent on the product manager. But now, as a senior dev, somebody who has worked, who has experience over the years, would you say that the success of a product depends more on the strong PM's leadership or a strong engineering?
As a senior dev, right? I'll give the answer senior devs give. It depends. It depends.
Okay, depends on what.
It depends on both factors you mentioned. Strong leadership with strong engineering team. So there's an adage that says a rich man amongst 9 or 10 other poor men is also a poor man. Why? Because the poor man they're going to leech off the rich man, thereby turning him poor at the end of the day. So if one person's inadequacy can affect the general overall of the team. So it's more like there has to be a balance. So that's why I say it depends. There has to be a balance between the strength of the product team and the strength of the engineering team. So you cannot gather a bunch of quote and unquote junior engineers. I'm not saying junior engineers are not great, but I'm just saying their output is not going to be the same as that of a senior engineer because of the level of experience. Yeah. So a team should comprise of strong hands, mid-level hands, and maybe a few junior engineers to support. Then the leadership team or product team should comprise of the same thing also. Strong hands, mid-level hands, and maybe a few junior hands. So you cannot tax the development of a product to someone that's just starting out his product development journey. You can't expect the same level of outputs. So it depends on the balance that you have in the team. Yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, I've not worked at any FANG before to see how things happen, but with startups, I've worked in startups. So from a startup perspective, I seen some startups not pick up because they had no PM. It was just the engineers dragging the feature, the product in whatever direction they felt it should go. But with somebody at the helm of development, of product management, you can steer it to a good direction. So as I said, the balance between the strength of the engineering team versus the strength of the product. So you cannot say the success is entirely product. No, you can't say the success is entirely engineering. No, the success is as a result of a balance between both teams.
Wow. This is. I actually agree. I totally agree. Thank you very much. As much as I used to say that it depends on the PM, I also like to say it also depends on the quality of developers, because if you code rubbish and it breaks, I didn't code that. As the PM, I didn't write the code, so it also matters.
It also matters. It's a crew. We're all responsible for the success of the product.
That's really profound. Thank you very, very, very much. One last question before we leave. I said that was the last question, but I just want to know, do you think that in the nearest future, with everything going on in tech space and how there are new trends and, people are learning better, people are picking up other stack to learn to aid development and every other thing, and then product managers are learning to be better communicators, do you think that there will be a world where probably there will be no complaints concerning PM this, dev this,
No, there's no world where it will end. Is the truth now? Can't you see okay, so let me use a typical example. See what's going on between countries, the US, Russia, US, China, US. At the end of the day, these are both powerful countries. But at the end of the day, there's someone at the helm of control, a person, a human being. So as long as human beings are interacting, there will always be conflict. since the dawn of time, since primitive man, there was always been conflict between communities. So there's no how.
No how.
But yeah, but the idea is how we navigate issues. I mean, there's peace in the world today because certain people agree to certain terms. So if we can all agree, so when you say in the near future, no, now I won't be around for the next 200 years to be clamoring PMs and engineers must work well together. No, you guys just have to decide to be good to each other at the end of the day.
That's really interesting. I don't think I want it to end per se. I enjoy the banter. It makes work fun. Really does.
And at the end of the day, and we're all learning, right? I mean, we talked about balance of the engineering team. It's not at all times you get on a product where everybody is at the top of their game. Of course, there might be somebody that is just starting out their career, and the job served as an opportunity for them to, start out, level up. So you have to deal with that person differently. You get to a level where, okay, you're working on a team, and you just figure out, oh, everybody in this team they're more experienced than you. At the end of the day, you still have to manage them. Forget the experience more than you, the experience than you rather. You get. So it's just about figuring it out as you are wading the waters.
Thank you very, very much for coming on Ruti Speaks. I enjoyed every bit of conversation with you. I love it so much. Thank you for your time.